3, 2, 1. Welcome to The Peaceful Truth, the podcast where we talk about everything from women empowerment, feminism, and everything in between. You are joined by your two co-hosts, Kenzie Meekbeck and
Megan Hohards.
So we're sharing, if you're watching on YouTube, we're sharing a mic, Megan and I. So we're going to be bouncing in between. It's going to be super awesome. But who are we joined by today? Do you guys want to introduce yourself? We have two guests.
Sure. I am Maggie Cole.
And I'm Lindsey Francis.
And we are so excited for you guys to be here.
We're so excited to be on your show.
Yay!
And we are RAW, which is Rebel Aligned Wellness. So yes, we have our own yoga and wellness workshop company, and we are based out of the Puget Sound area.
Perfect. So I just wanted to kick things off about how I know you guys.
Great.
So and why you guys are here. So I know you guys from 3 Trees Yoga teacher training. We completed it together. So do you guys want to give a little bit of background on our experience and kind of how we got to know each other?
Were we all in the same mentor group too?
No, Megan had a different mentor than Lindsey and I.
We were all in Jenny's
Jenny.
group.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so there were about 22 students that year, and it's a 10-month program. So unlike other 200-hour training programs, I think you get to spend a little more time getting to know everybody. Which was just such a great kind of comprehensive experience. It was, I've known a lot of people that do the 6 to 8 week intensive and get it all wrapped up in one nutshell, but I'm really glad that it wasn't like that for us.
Yeah.
But we had these breakout groups. There's 3 trees, there's 3 kind of mentors. And so they split us into thirds, and we were all in the same mentor group, which gives us a little more intimate information on people. They want you to share a little more of your kind of the emotional impact of what you're doing, and so some personal things come out. I know I was kind of a crybaby.
Lots of crying, lots of laughter too, but definitely lots of crying.
Yeah. I really want to find out what they called our year. You know how they were like, we had the Love Fest year where everybody hugged, and we had the all business year. I want to know what we were. If we were like the emotional year. Yeah. I'm like, I wonder if we were like the emotionally traumatized year.
We were all going through a lot of stuff together.
That was that year too. And, I don't know, a lot of astrologists and other stuff were talking about that year of 2016 being this massive kind of upheaval year in general. So it did feel like that. It felt like everybody we met was there because they went through something that was like life-changing, and here they were to get a grip on who they were and what they wanted their future to look like.
Well, that leads us into a good segue. Do you guys want to talk about kind of what you have been through on your personal adventure and how it's brought you to this spot?
Oh my goodness. How far back do we want to go on this journey? My gosh.
Maggie, do you want to just give a little bit of an overview about your background?
Okay, sure. So, So I'm in recovery. I'm in a 12-step recovery program. I could just say it. I'm in Narcotics Anonymous. That is the 12-step program that I choose to be in. And I started dabbling in drugs and alcohol when I was 16. And then I started doing yoga when I was 19. And when I started doing yoga in my yoga practice, I was like smoking weed before yoga and take Adderall before yoga. And I would go to these like crazy Baron Baptiste hot yoga classes and be able to do all this stuff. And I was just, I wasn't into yoga for the right reasons. And so then fast forward years later, when I decided I was going to stop doing drugs and alcohol, I didn't want to do yoga because I didn't want to be on my yoga mat by myself with my feelings. And, like everyone says, you come to your yoga mat for self-discovery, and you come to your yoga mat because it's a journey inward, and you come to your yoga mat to come home and be in your mind and be in your body. And, with days off drugs and alcohol, I wanted to run from my body and my mind, and I didn't know how to do yoga and live life on life's terms without the use of alcohol and drugs. And so I didn't do yoga. I did a lot of dance fitness and worked out and did all that stuff. And then I slowly got back into yoga because I found Y12SR, which is 12-step recovery yoga, which is founded by Nikki Myers. And so that's how I got back into yoga. And then I always wanted to do my yoga teacher training prior to getting clean and sober, but I was never able to. But since I decided to become clean and sober and we got to do all these amazing things that we don't get to do when we're loaded, I was finally able to go get my 200-hour RYT and be on the mat and be by myself. And now, and now I get to work with Lindsey and we get to share our stories, and we sub Y12SR now, and we give back to the community, and that's part of what Rebel Aligned Wellness is. That's like the Rebels. Like, we want to form a community that is not just for people who use alcohol and drugs. It's so more than that. But like any person who doesn't feel like they fit in to a certain yoga community, or like they haven't found their people, like this is a safe place that our business and our offerings are a safe place where anyone can come, and no matter who you are, what you've been through, and that doesn't mean that's how you have to show up today. Like, you can come as you are, and that's how we know you, and that's how we accept you.
That's really cool. What about you? Are you comfortable sharing your backstory as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we try to be completely open books. You gotta name it to tame it, and we definitely want to end the shame and stigma around issues that
absolutely
more people deal with than we know. A lot of people deal with them in silence. So I guess I came to yoga at least kind of the opposite way that Maggie did. I got into yoga after I got sober the first time. I too was heavily addicted to drugs and alcohol, and using and abusing right here in Seattle, and found myself in, completely just terrible circumstances. I had nothing left to live for. At least that was what I thought at the time. And then I was fortunate to have one of those white light experiences where, my father actually asked the right question: are you on drugs and do you need help? And I just remember, this white light came over me, and I knew in that moment that I needed to be brutally honest, and that I deserved to have a good life. So I went and got sober. I wish I could say I'd stayed sober, but in sobriety that first time is when I finally went to my first yoga class, and I totally went to get a workout. It was like 24-hour fitness style yoga, and I walked away feeling just better mentally. It was like I was walking on sunshine every time I left a class, even here in the gray Northwest. But the other part of my story is that I have bipolar disorder. It's bipolar type 2. It's rapid cycling. So how that disorder manifests in me naturally is that I have like 3 weeks normal, and then 5 days of mania, and then 3 weeks normal and 5 days of depression. And so that was really confusing. I wasn't diagnosed for that at the time when I got sober. Before I got off drugs and stuff, I'd had several doctors try to prescribe me other kinds of drugs for that, but they still don't really know a lot about those disorders. So that I was constantly getting put on, dare I say, the wrong drugs, that made everything worse. So at any rate, when I was clean and sober, I was still having those episodes, and that was really confusing to be like, gosh, I feel like I'm doing everything right. Why is this still happening to me? And so unfortunately I did start smoking weed and stuff again in an effort to kind of medicate what was happening and regulate what was happening. And then a lot of that, then I continued to do yoga. I moved to San Francisco. I had a really successful career as a makeup artist. And in San Francisco, I think there's just a whole lot more of that saturation. At least that was, in the early 2000s. So, it was already there. It was already popular. And I was fortunate to find a lot of really wonderful and supportive friends in San Francisco, regardless of the fact that I was smoking weed day in and day out and drinking to excess at times. But everything definitely changed after I had my son. He's 8 now. And my disorder got much worse after having a baby, which I hear is pretty normal. The hormonal shift can really affect what's happening in the midbrain in that disorder. So, I dealt a lot with postpartum depression. I had lost my job 8.5 months into my pregnancy. And so it was a whole avalanche of things where I suddenly found myself moving back home with my husband, not into my parents' house or anything, but still moving back here and leaving San Francisco, which I thought I would never do. Being a stay-at-home mom instead of a corporate mom like I had expected. and then dealing with just, the kind of isolation that I think a lot of new moms deal with at first when they don't have a mom posse or somebody else to turn to support and help. Plus, my husband traveled a lot for work, so I spent a lot of time alone. And it got really hard. But I kept coming back to my mat, and through my yoga practice, I got a really good kind of education in mindfulness, like you were saying about sitting with who you are and how you're feeling. I think that mindfulness is what allowed me to kind of discern the difference between reality and what the chemicals in my brain were making me feel on any given day. I started to notice that it seemed like there was a pattern to my disorder. I started to feel like, gosh, this doesn't make any sense. Yesterday I was fine. Why is the whole world falling apart today? Nothing actually changed, right? Like nothing changed in my family situation. My husband and I are fine. And so it was, it took a while, but I finally went back and got some therapy and was able to walk through it with a therapist who is also educated in Eastern medicine and respected the fact that I was afraid of Western drugs, and was able to really explain to me the neurology behind the disorder so that I could accept that I couldn't control it. I really thought that I could apply yoga to everything that I was feeling and I would be fixed. And I would get really hard on myself and down on myself, like, God, I'm just not meditating right, Yeah. And it took a lot of convincing for me to understand that it's just a broken valve in my midbrain and it's not something I can control, and that mental illness is physical illness. And fortunately, they were able to offer me an option of this kind of seizure medication that doesn't have any of the normal side effects of things like lithium and stuff like that, where I was really afraid of that idea that I would be kind of a numb person. I like my gregariousness, so I didn't want to lose that. And, I've been really grateful that since the day I started taking that, I haven't had a single episode. It's like the disorder is gone. It's not, because I have to keep doing what I'm doing, but it's nothing short of a miracle. But it was after I got that under control that I was able to see that I had a drug and alcohol problem as well, because here, that problem was fixed. I didn't need the weed to take me out of a panic attack, and I didn't need, I couldn't blame a bender on a manic episode, right? Like I couldn't blame things on my disorder anymore. And so again, thankfully, I think because of the practice of yoga and that kind of desire I've always had to keep getting better, keep being better. Like I just have, ever since that day when I had my white light moment, I've known that I was worth it, and that a higher power wants that for me. Sorry, I get really emotional when I talk about this stuff.
Don't be sorry.
But yeah, it took a while to understand that I was worth it. And I want other people to know that they are too. Yeah, sorry. I always get emotional. I know, that's one of those lady things, right? We always apologize for having feelings.
I apologized like 3,000 times this morning to someone, and they're like, why are you
apologizing? Why are you saying sorry for feeling your feelings?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm just forever grateful that now I do have my training to be able to bring this healing to other people. And before it was just something that my close friends and family knew about me. And so I've always been that friend that everybody comes to when their world is crashing down and they need advice on how to get their, can I swear on here?
Yeah.
How to get their shit together. And I've always loved being that person that other people can come to. And so, I decided to go and get my certification and become a yoga teacher so that I could potentially heal other people. And then my experience after graduating was that a lot of the places I get offered gigs at are more like gym related, and places where I can't really bring a lot of the more, I guess, woo-woo side of yoga. And I love that part, and I love being able to translate that into actual practical stuff, just like we're talking about with understanding that mental illness is physical illness. It's wonderful that we now know that there's a lot of science behind the benefits of things like meditation and a physical yoga practice, and even the chakras. Like that they can now demonstrate through brain scans and things that there's actual physical things happening when we engage in those practices. So I love being able to bring that to students with Rebel Aligned Wellness, and Maggie really enables me to be a healer, and I hope I enable her to be a community builder, because I think those are our gifts, and now we get to share them with everybody and make yoga really accessible to every body. And
not just like the physical yoga, but like Lindsey said, the emotional and the spiritual yoga too. We want to make that, like, that's our mission, is to build community and make it accessible, no matter the gender, the color of their skin, how much you weigh, all that stuff. There are no limitations in the yoga we are doing.
Well, first off, I want to say to both of you ladies, thank you for being vulnerable, and thank you for being brave. Something I've experienced recently, and I think more people need to hear, and it's because since I moved out here, it's been more accepted, I feel like. I used to live in the South, and unfortunately there are those social and cultural things. Not everyone's like that, but there are those differences. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that mental health I was embarrassed of as well until recently. I have a lot of anxiety issues and OCD, and it's hard. And but I want to thank you for being vulnerable, because I think the more people talk about it, the more it's going to bring awareness, and people are going to feel more comfortable. And I think it's going to prevent a lot of issues out there. And my therapist as well has promoted mindfulness. So I just want to say thank you for awesome. Sharing your story, because there's probably ladies out there listening that's going through something similar.
I have found that, right? Like every time I seem to open my mouth, somebody's like, I have this issue, or somebody close and personal to me has had these issues. And I don't know a single person in my life who hasn't been touched by either mental illness or addiction. It seems to run in a lot of families.
So can you tell us about rehabilitation and what kind of brought you to be clean and sober in here today?
Sure. So I got sober for the first time when I was 22, and I was addicted to not just smoking weed and drinking, but harder drugs, taking a lot of ecstasy and cocaine and smoking it, and really living out the life of a derelict junkie. So I really needed, having kind of been born and raised right here in Seattle, and having a lot of my friends revolving around the music scene that I was into, but also the kinds of drugs and the way I like to party. I really had to be removed from that scene, and got myself into inpatient treatment. And once I made the decision to get sober, I really took the initiative to do that myself, making those phone calls, which is difficult. I know a lot of people just give up in that process alone, because it can be difficult just to get your foot in the door of a treatment facility that will accept you or accept your insurance. And so I went into an inpatient treatment facility that was pretty, hardcore. But my insurance would only let me be there for 9 days. So I had 9 days basically of detoxing, and then went out and did, I know, right? Like 9 days to come down off all that.
Not enough.
And then be sent back out into the world. But I at least was pretty resolute about the fact that I couldn't keep hanging out with the same people. Like, that was really going to be tough for me for a while. So I wound up moving back in with my parents at 22, which was a little bit humiliating, but you do what you got to do to get sober. And started doing outpatient treatment as well as AA meetings, and did the 90 and 90 that they suggest, 90 meetings, 90 days. Got myself a sponsor, did all that good stuff. And it worked for me because I wanted it. And then this time around, it was the same thing. Once I had made the resolution that this was what I was going to do, I did it. And this time I knew where to go. Last time I kind of hemmed and hawed through the steps a little bit, and this time I was kind of like, let's do this. Let's go. Like, I know what I want, and I know how to get it. So I just popped myself into a local AA meeting and started from there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So my story is a little different, as everyone's is. Like, the stories are all different, but the feelings are the same. And you know, and that's what gives us that connection to each other. So I've been like working on getting clean since I was 16, so I'm not going to go through all of it, but I'll talk about my most recent getting clean. So in active addiction, towards the end, I had, you know, I originally in college was doing Coke, and then I decided I was going to be a teacher, and it's not acceptable to do Coke and be a teacher. So I was just going to trade in the Coke for Adderall. So, which is basically like legal Coke. So I was doing Adderall, and after abusing it for long enough without a doctor's prescription, it started to make me go crazy and to make me manic. And I was doing the exact same thing as people do when they're in like a meth mania, on like 5 milligrams of Adderall, because my body just could not handle it anymore. And so I was living in Michigan. I went to Michigan to go visit a friend, and then in travel, in my mania, I decided I wanted a dog, and my friend was like, well, you can't stay at my apartment with a puppy. Like, it's just not going to happen. And I was like, oh, I don't need you. I'll just go live in a hotel and get a dog on my own. Well, long story short, I ended up in a hospital in Michigan, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to go. And they're like, oh, no, like, you're staying. And so I was held against my own will in a hospital on a psychiatric floor for 21 days. And I mean, my poor mom. I love you, Mom. My mom had to come from Arizona and like go stay at, find someone to stay with, and like come visit me in the hospital every day until I got to go home. And so this is kind of an important part of my story. So because I was in mania and because I was in my 30s, they were like, oh, you're bipolar for sure. And I was like, well, I understand that I'm having behavior that looks like bipolar, but I'm also on Adderall, so why don't you take me off the Adderall and then see what my behavior looks like before you do just put me on lithium and put me on all these things that need to be monitored and are very, very
They're
serious.
Hard drugs.
Yeah, and I'm in a hospital, so I mean, this psychiatrist really doesn't know me. I mean, they see me and what I came in like when I was in mania, but that's not a good look at what I'm like off drugs. So I was not able to leave the hospital until I was on lithium and until I was on these drugs like Lindsey was talking about. And then when I left to come back to go back to Washington, I fought with these doctors and was like, listen, I was never bipolar before, can you just take me off these drugs and just see what I'm like? And they're like, oh no, we read your hospital reports. A bipolar person, they're the first people to think that they're not bipolar, and you're probably feeling good and better because you're on this medication, so we're not taking you off. So long story short, thank God that my cousin who lives in Oregon is a naturopath doctor, and through him, he weaned me off the medication, and I have not been on medication since. And so while some people, it's like so important to have their medication and they are diagnosed and it's like real, for other people, and this is huge in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, like see what it's like to come off the drugs. Give yourself some time. Like, don't go running to the doctor because we always want to fix. Like, that's how we got here.
Put a pill on it.
Exactly. Like, and today I don't need any medication. So on the flip side, I'm like the opposite of Lindsey, where I was like forced to be on medication that I didn't need because of my addiction. And like, guess what? When I have problems when I put drugs in my body, like that's when the problems happen. But when I don't, this is how I show up.
Right. And I'd like to circle back to a little bit about that, because when I think, like I mentioned, they misdiagnosed me several times before I was 22 and put me on the wrong drugs. And this time around, when I went to get help for my mental health, I just want to say I was offered drugs, like serious psychiatric medicine, from a general practitioner who has no mental health training, and 4 other doctors after that. And I had to say no 5 times before they would get me a therapist, and a therapist that would understand. And then when I needed to get a therapist, when my insurance approved it, I had to call 13 different people, 13 different clinics to find a therapist that would take my insurance. Well, no, those were all people that took my insurance. I had to call 13 different therapists before I would find one that would take new patients. And I say that because I can't imagine, like, I had the tenacity and the family support to say, okay, I know you just got rejected, but pick up the phone and call the next one. Because I just can't imagine when you're in crisis, it takes enough just to admit that you need help, but to have to go through that rigorous process, it was 6 weeks before I was seen. And that was 6 weeks where I needed serious help, and had to continue to suffer. And then I just feel really blessed that I did get in front of a therapist who was willing to say, no drugs until we get to the bottom of what this really is. I could have been misdiagnosed so many times. Like, they wanted to send me home with Prozac and Valium and all kinds of stuff. And then when it came down to this option of lamotrigine, Lamictal, that's what I take, and it's an anticonvulsant, but it's also considered a mood stabilizer. And it was kind of like, if this one doesn't work for you, lithium and electric shock therapy are your only other options. And I was just shocked to even find out that they still do electric shock therapy.
They were doing it at the hospital I was at in Michigan.
and I understand. I don't want to, shame all of Western medicine and say that maybe it's not the Neanderthal experience it looked like in, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
It is.
But
it is.
It really scared me. It scared me enough to want to deny that I had a problem. But yeah, I just think that that's really important for people to understand, that even if you do need help, it was critical for me to have a support system in my corner that could kind of, like, my husband was a really good partner who was sympathetic and patient and willing to check in with me and make sure, so I could kind of be like, is this real or is this my chemicals? And he'd be like, it's just your chemicals. I'm here. I'll support you. And just kept encouraging me to be the best I could be. But yeah, I think that there's a serious problem in the way that mental health is diagnosed and treated in this country, and just the fact that I had to go through that rigmarole, I can't imagine if I had been in any other kind of situation, like suicidal or something like that. So at any rate, yeah, I just wanted to throw that in.
Okay, add something too. So
yeah,
I'm like, no,
you don't have to ask me. Yeah,
I know. Wait, but the same thing happened to me. So when I was getting this Adderall, misprescribed for ADD, I was getting it from the LPN at my gynecologist office. So there's another example of someone who's...
Why are they even prescribing that?
Like,
why are they even in charge or allowed?
Right. You need to get your psychiatric drugs through a psychiatrist or someone who's trained. So I guess that's... turns out that's our message today.
Well, and even at the psychiatrist's office, it's like they had me fill out a 2-page questionnaire, and that's what they were going to give me pills based off of.
Right.
Which, like I was saying, in my disorder, 3 weeks of normalcy, 5 days of mania, it depended on the day I showed up for that appointment, what I was going to put on that form.
Yeah.
How I was going to feel.
So get someone who you work with and you know with, and you're doing counseling.
Like I said, it took that year of every week I went to that therapist, and he had me chart it, like literally put it on a chart so that I could see the scale, see how it was ebbing and flowing, and realize that no, it's not PMS. Yeah. And it's not connected to circumstances in my life.
Environment,
right?
yeah.
This is not reasonable, rational, emotional responses to the circumstances.
I do want to ask something, though, in case like people do find, playing devil's advocate, in case people do find help through Western medicine.
Oh yeah, no, I did.
Is that like something as well?
My therapist came through my HMO. That it's not. I didn't go to a holistic healer to find him. It was just. I think it was. A blessing of my higher power that he happened. Like it was coincidence that he happened to have some Eastern training as well. Cool. But he was definitely a Western medicine doctor. The meds I take are from that. It's just, I guess my message to people would be to trust your instincts. Nobody knows you better than you know yourself.
Definitely.
I agree.
Take a lot of notes when you're in crisis and when you're not in crisis. And you need to be your own advocate. It's okay to say no to a medical professional until you get in the room with the person that you're seeking. I would say that maybe don't accept the first thing a general practitioner wants to put you on, and see if you can get a lot of different opinions from a lot of different people that are a little bit more specialized in mental health.
Cool. I think that's really good advice.
Awesome.
Cool. Thanks, ladies. So in what way, kind of going back to yoga though, in what ways would you say mindfulness and yoga could empower other women who are going through tough experiences, or just in general, mindfulness in general? How does that empower people?
Well, it's definitely like in mindfulness there's a lot of hype around mindfulness and what is mindfulness. And just a general way I like to break it down to my students is just being in the moment and being with whatever comes up, whatever experiences is going on in your body, and just not being on your phone or not talking, just like sitting with it and having the things come and acknowledge them. And so, a lot of things can come up on the yoga mat, and just when you're having a mind, like, you don't have to be on the yoga mat to practice mindfulness. You can be doing it in nature. You can be doing, just somewhere where you're all there and tuned in. And a lot of times you can, feelings will come up and you can address them and see why they're there and work on them. And, it's so great to practice mindfulness instead of using a vice because, drugs and alcohol are one thing, but people use all types of things as distractions, and social media and food and people. And the thing is when you don't address the issues and the feelings and you engage in something else, first of all, the other thing you engage in might cause more guilt and shame and like negative feelings, and you never address the underlying issue. So like if I'm feeling some type of way and like I want to eat chocolate, like sometimes like you can actually feel better from eating chocolate. So I might have a few bites, but I don't like overindulge, because then it's like, then I'm gonna be like, oh shit, I just ate all this chocolate, and guess what? I still feel the same way, if not worse. So by taking some time to breathe, or practicing acts of self-care, or just being in the moment, I can see what comes up and then get on the other side. Because I love this. The only way out is through. So, you got to get through it. And I'm sure Lindsey has something to say, but can you share about eating the toast at the teacher retreat? And when we had that mindfulness morning, because that was so profound.
Wow. Can I ask one quick thing, just in case people are brand new to yoga and brand new to mindfulness? Yes. Can we first define mindfulness? I'm sorry I didn't get into that first.
So mindfulness, like Maggie was saying, it can be done in all these different spaces in your life. But what mindfulness means to me is really listening and paying attention to the present moment. And so that can be scanning through the physical body and noticing if you're feeling any sensations in any areas of the body, points of tension, areas that are being clenched or tight. So many of us keep our breath held up in the upper chest and don't even know it, or we clench our jaw and our brow and we don't even know we're doing it. So that's a practice of physical mindfulness. And then there's the tuning into the chatter in the mind and just noticing where the thoughts are trying to wander, if they're trying to chew on a particular conversation that's already happened and you're reliving it, or something that you've done in the past, or a to-do list of the future. But it's noticing those things without judging them or labeling them good or bad, just seeing what's there for you and going, how interesting that this is what my mind is toiling over. And just being able to identify that, like Maggie was saying, then you can address it. And then you can go, oh my gosh, it isn't that, I'm pissed off at my boyfriend. It's that this thing happened at work that I can't control and I'm upset about it. And then maybe that can, save you from taking it out in an inappropriate way, projecting it elsewhere. And then there's that spiritual mindfulness too, of just seeing whether or not you're a little too, maybe you're disconnected from the spiritual world and the natural world. I think that's really easy, like you were saying, with all the distractions we have, the way we can go, gosh, I'm feeling a little this way, so I'm going to get on Facebook and,
make myself feel worse by everyone else's great posts.
Or try to make myself feel better by looking at things that are like just making fun of celebrities as if that has any bearing on your life or your existence. I know people that know way more about the Kardashians than they do about their neighbors. And that to me is really sad. That's not being very mindful of your surroundings. And so I think that's the way to get mindfulness. You kind of look inward and kind of go, gosh, why is it that I feel this way? And then meet that with maybe, just maybe, a little bit more of a holistic practice, whether it's, taking a bath or playing with your kid or gardening. That's a big one for me. Or just taking a walk or a nap, honoring the fact that maybe it's that you need to sleep.
Yeah, you're probably tired.
Yeah, sleep is the purest form of meditation. Isn't that right? Isn't that what? Yeah. So.
Okay, talk about the toast.
Talk about the toast? Oh my God, that's so funny that you remember that anecdote.
Do you remember her talking about after our silent morning?
So you were saying about having some OCD issues. I used to believe that I had OCD as well, but I think it is through yoga and stuff and getting on the right medication and getting off drugs and alcohol that I've been able to notice that I really don't have OCD. I just... I think I was just really struggling for control in areas because I didn't have control in others. But it was when we were at our graduation retreat and we spent time in silence. And by silence, I mean we weren't allowed to talk to each other. And this is like all of us living together in a retreat situation and navigating spaces like the cabins that we're staying in, sharing showers, and not taking them together, you know what I mean? But like coordinating that, like how are we each going to take silent showers together? Creepy. Wait, what's going on? Wait. What is
yoga
this retreat?
life?
But and then like eating breakfast and things like that. And so it was like we weren't allowed to talk. We weren't even allowed to make eye contact, and we had to find a way to navigate our spaces and we certainly weren't allowed to get on social media. That's a different kind of noise that we needed to silence. And so I have this like habit, this like OCD habit when I eat toast of like I eat it in the same pattern every single time. And I'll tell you too, it's like left bottom corner, right bottom, top left, or top right, and then the sides, and then the middle. And I don't know when this started, but I know it started in childhood. And for some reason, when we had this silence practice and I was totally in mindfulness, I was able to like lift up the piece of toast and be like, I don't have to do that. I can just eat the toast. And I found myself eating really slowly and like taking a bite and chewing it fully and swallowing it fully before thinking about where I was going to take the next bite. And I realized that I do that a lot in eating, where I'm like already loading up the fork with the next bite before I've even finished or enjoyed fully the bite that's in my mouth. Like So I don't know, that was just a really amazing experience to be like, wow, maybe there is a way that I can interrupt these compulsive behaviors that are almost subconscious. Like, I don't even know I'm doing it. I didn't know I was doing that, eating toast like that, until I got married. And my husband was like, why do you do that? So it was just funny. Like, yeah, that I was able to interrupt it with that kind of mindfulness practice.
I used to have to tally my homework. That was my little
Really?
thing. Yeah, I had
completed
to,
homework? Or?
Yeah, no, I had to study something 5 times, and I had tallies on all of my sheets, and I had to study it 5 times, or I was convinced I didn't know it.
Right, and that you wouldn't, and that you wouldn't be okay,
and I wouldn't get an A on the paper.
Right,
Yeah.
right. God forbid.
I know. Yeah.
God forbid you
forbid
only
you got a
studied
B.
it 3 times. Right? Oh my gosh.
So that is one example of simple mindfulness. Any other simple mindfulness practices that you guys can think of that women can incorporate into their lives?
So I really love, and Lindsey, are you talking, like, I love the intuitive eating. Like, that's a huge thing.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Is that, like, that's like one of my favorite examples, because it's so true. Like, when you really tune into like how you're eating, and especially in America, we have like, how many minutes do you get on your lunch break, Kenzie?
An hour.
Oh,
well, that's
good.
I know.
Yeah,
That is my company is actually very sympathetic to things. So,
yay
yes.
for time to eat. But I know, like, a lot of people, you know, are just like, lunch is there and they're just cramming their food and trying to, I mean, and a lot of people work through lunch, and you know, also, like, you know, when you put on a movie and you get the bowl of popcorn and then you're like eating the popcorn, you're like, oh my gosh, like all the popcorn's gone. Like
before the preview.
Yes. All
but
of
it's
our
like,
snacks are gone before the movie starts.
Yes. And it's just like this, you know, it's actually, it's mindless eating. And so, like, I love to challenge myself and just like have some meals where I put the phone away and I put everything away. And like Lindsey and I have talked about, like, because we talk about food, and part of Raw is food is medicine. And so we talk a lot about like eating, and just like how Lindsey said, like, I'll do the same thing. I'm like chewing, loading up my fork, and like I might even load the second bite in before I've even swallowed the first. And
so, like, a really practical tool that I encourage people to do if they find that, like, they feel like you know, maybe they're waiting too long to eat, and so it's really hard to make a healthy decision at the time. Either if you know what time about you're going to be eating, it can really help if about 20 minutes before you know you're going to be eating, if you can start drinking a glass of water. And just sipping on that, a lot of times we confuse dehydration with hunger.
Thirst with hunger, yeah.
If we can at least quench our thirst a little bit, it might help us make a little more rational decision when it comes to what we're going to feed our bodies next. So that's just something I always recommend to my friends that are, like, struggling with sugar addiction and things like that. And they find that maybe they're, you know, by the time that they go to eat that meal, they're so hungry that they're going to grab the most convenient thing, which is often kind of a convenient snack food, or obviously something they don't have to prepare. Mm-hmm. But, you know, if we can do that as just a daily practice of, like, you know, gosh, I know I'm going to be eating about this time every day, so I'm going to make sure I have a glass of water or a cup of tea, maybe, you know, something without caffeine. That can be a really easy practice to put into your life. I would also say that trying to carve out a time in each of your day, like whatever time it is, whether it's when you first wake up or in the evening, just to take some of that silent time. Be sure that you're taking that time where you're not, where your phone is maybe in a different room even. So I know one of the things that I do, because it was hard for me to kind of develop a morning prayer or meditation practice, but it's much easier if I do this kind of little trick of a practice where I get up and I start my coffee, and then I go and I read a daily kind of just a daily quote type book that I have, Meditations from the Mat, or some other kind of inspirational daily readers, and that just kind of sets the tone for my day while my coffee is being made. And then I really make sure that when I enjoy that first cup of coffee, that I actually sit there in silence and think about it. You know, I take a moment to hold it and feel the heat on my hands from the mug. I take a moment to just breathe in the scent and notice how that makes me feel. And then I enjoy every sip, but I make sure to do it without immediately opening up my Instagram and scrolling through my Facebook and worrying about online news of things I can't control and things that ultimately just cause me more anxiety than anything. So
yeah, and if you listen to people who are like super successful and do a lot of manifestation, they say as well, like they have a morning routine and they wake up and just like Lindsey said, they don't go straight to Instagram and they don't go straight to their email. And if you wake up with fear or just like plaguing feelings, an attitude of gratitude is like amazing. And if you could just sit there, yes, and just like that's what I do every morning. I just like start saying all the things that I'm grateful for, because number one, it can definitely change your mood and your mindset, but also too, like they say that if you're not grateful for what you have, like you're not going to be able to receive more from the universe, your higher power, God, whatever, you believe in. Like it's not until we're grateful for what we have. So like this morning, Ra's chakra workshop is sold out today. What?
Congrats.
So today when I woke up, I was like, I'm so grateful for every student that we have and
that's coming.
Coming. And I mean, we are so grateful for every student we have, but we're not going to receive more students until we're grateful for the students we have, and we're not going to be able to take things to the next level, not only for ourselves, but this is for the community, until we're grateful for what we've cultivated.
So, Maggie, I know that you really wanted to touch on Instagram and kind of the thought around social media, yoga, all that good stuff. So, tell us some stories.
So, well, two things about the gram, and then Lindsey can finish up on what The gram. There's so much going on in the gram, but I just want to get.
Isn't there ever?
Yeah,
especially in the yoga community right now.
Yeah, but I just want to say this before I kick off the gram, because I want to focus on the focus on the good, feed the good dog. So yeah, last week we had our Beyond Bliss class, and there were 5 girls who signed up, remember? So there were 5 girls who signed up who we didn't know, and we're like, man, where did you
hear about us?
Where did these people? And they're like emailing, we're coming from the airplane and we need yoga mats. And I'm like, wow,
who
are you?
How'd you find us?
And the girl, is her name Kristen?
Kristen.
Yeah, it's because she follows Lindsey at Lindsey's personal account, not Raw.
And Lux_life_flow.
Yeah, Lux Life Flow.
Hashtag follow.
Lindsey.
Hashtag follow.
Subscribe.
Yes. Yes. So she follows Lindsey's personal account, and that's how she found Raw, and that's how. And Megs was with us, gracing us with her beautiful harmonium that everyone loves so much. Every time she plays and sings, she's getting so good, Kenzie. Like, oh my gosh,
I know. I'm
she's
so
getting
proud of
so
her.
Good. I'm like, you're amazing.
I'm like a proud mom over here.
Me too. I'm like, I remember the first day you got that thing. But yeah. So I mean, so that's something great. Like, because I mean, I
never would have thought.
No.
Like, I don't know. I've always had that. I've had that Instagram for a while, and I never intended or started, think of it as like something that's actually going to put students in my rooms. Like it's an international thing, a global thing. So I didn't think about, it actually boosting my local business. So that was just really cool. And just to say like, oh man, I know other yogis that do that, where they find an Instagram yogi that they're really inspired by, and so they make a point to go out there. But to be the recipient of something like that was just, oh man, the gratitude was overflowing.
Yeah, it's like an honor,
It felt like, it was definitely an honor to have somebody there and be able to meet her in person
from
and
Colorado
talk to her about stuff.
Like she wasn't just she's like,
you never know who you'll impact.
You never know who you're touching.
Yeah, that's why community is important.
It really made me think about that. Like, oh wow, I really don't know who I'm reaching or we're reaching. So we hope to build more of that kind of following with Rebel Aligned Wellness. You can find us on Instagram at Rebel Aligned Wellness.
Yeah.
Thank you. We were going to ask you that.
So that is something, that we're very grateful for. But I want to talk about, 2 things. One being in a business owner as females and being on Instagram, and then 2 Instagram personally for me. So as far as the business goes, the aspect of it, my goal, and I know Lindsey stands behind this, we are about being raw and we are about standing in our truth. And I hope I never use like so many filters and make ourselves look so many different ways that people wouldn't come in our yoga class and be like, oh, like I don't ever want someone to look at me and be like, wait, that's what you look like? Or like, you know, like, oh, I didn't expect her to look like that. Like, I want to be real, like authentic. Like, I don't know what authentic means to you guys, but like being real and showing up who you are. And sometimes having your hair up in a ponytail with no makeup. I mean, usually my life is like hair up, no makeup, and just showing up that way, because I'm not going to look like that. I mean, I honestly did this because I knew I was coming on the Peaceful Truth. So,
well, thank you.
You
look beautiful.
Today. Like, what? But, you know, like I want people to recognize me on the street. I don't want to do so many filters where people would be like, wait, that's Maggie Cole. Like, yeah. It's me.
Well, I know that was something that like I stopped doing maybe about a year ago. I used to use that app Facetune. And there's a lot of those kind of airbrushing apps out there, but I was constantly using that to remove any of the fine lines in my face or the cellulite on my body. And I do take a lot of Instagram,
just a lot of nude pictures.
I do.
Instagram. I'll say it for
a lot of naked yoga on my stuff. You know, it's classy, but
you be free, girl. You be free.
But I mean, I think it was about a year ago when I finally stopped editing that stuff out. And I'm 36. I'm a mom. It's amazing to me that
You're 36.
Thank you.
I thought you were in your 20s.
The power of yoga. But yeah, just like it's awesome that I love my body and I love myself more now than ever. And I realize that although it might have made my photo look a little more polished to me, I wasn't being honest, and that does a disservice to everybody else in my age group that sits around and looks at 20-year-olds with jealousy. And like, we don't need to do that. I want to own my laugh lines. I want to be sure that all women understand that cellulite is totally normal and it's not ugly. It's just a thing, and it's on skinny people and it's on strong people. And so I tried to stop hiding it. And I just want to give a big shout out to the generation beneath me, because I feel like they've been the ones to really promote this body positivity movement. I don't think my generation was quite as into that. Like, I remember when I was young, it was like you were either a Kate Moss or a Pam Anderson, and those were your two beauty options, or beauty ideals. So I'm just like really grateful that there's a lot of these yogis, especially, that are coming out with like, you know, body positive yoga and owning it. So that really gave me the courage to do that as well.
Yeah, and that ties in so perfectly. You know us so well. So what I wanted to talk about is being a female and being on Instagram, especially in the yoga community. And of course, this is just my experience, and everyone's different. But I know Lindsey can relate, because I was talking to Lindsey about this, and she was the one who was helping me come to this conclusion. So, you know, being in the yoga industry, a lot of yogis, and this is on Instagram too. I mean, they're just these women doing all these crazy things with their bodies, and it's hard for me not to start comparing myself and to feel less than, and to be like, well, what can you do? And even though there's like all these things I am doing, you know, I mean, I feel like we all are. Like, I know I'm my biggest like critique.
Those folks that are doing those really impressive acrobatic type yoga poses, with like
and
no
stuff,
fat, where you're like,
just
oh my gosh, you're like rail thin and doing an awesome scorpion pincha, touching your feet to your head, and
or even if like I'm eating so healthy and doing all these things, why don't I look like that? It could be even, you know, like I'm doing this and that. And
I love meeting the ones that are like, I'm a self-taught yogi learning from Instagram. I've been doing it for a year and I can do a press handstand, and I'm like, I've been doing this for 14 years. I can't do that.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get stuck in that loop of like, I used to do that. I had accounts that I was absolutely obsessed with, and like, these women don't look like me, like physically, like we don't have the same bodies, and none of that matters anyway. You know, the physical practice of yoga is one of 8 limbs, so it has no bearing on whether or not and it tells you nothing about that person's life, but it's really easy to get. I understand it completely, because while you're over there looking at somebody, like, I'm looking at the next person down the line too, and going like, gosh, I'm really jealous of this person, and getting down on myself for not being
and you never
at that
know
level.
who might be jealous of you.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So like I
Right.
like look at Lindsey and I'm like, oh my gosh, Lindsey looks so bomb. Like, and then here I am sitting next to Lindsey, and I might like be, you know, self-critiquing myself. But then like when I tell Lindsey,
And then I'm
I'm really
looking
struggling
at that person.
Right. And then you know what Lindsey said to me after? I was like, God, like I just am feeling really down on myself, and like you're so gorgeous. And Lindsey's like, well, like I'm looking at this person, and by the way, there's someone double ourselves who just, there's someone out there who's double both of our sizes who just loves themselves and is like, this is how I look.
By the way,
like,
check out this woman who's owning it, and she doesn't live in the, you know, strict definition of corporate beauty, you know, like, and I don't know. I'm just really inspired by people like that are like just putting themselves out there, and they're owning it. And we're ending. I love that generation. We're like ending the body shaming.
yeah.
And it's another form of mindfulness, really. It's
It
like
is.
recognizing
It
that
is.
there's an issue and still being able to use Instagram, but then holding
Yeah.
that out there
Yeah.
and being like, we need to take a break sometimes. It's okay to still have an account. It doesn't make you like shallow or anything, but like
No.
take it and hold it in your hand and see,
Yeah.
hey,
Well, and
this
I mean,
is like a
it's
comparison
like,
thing.
No, most of these are accounts that have like hundreds of thousands of followers, so I'm sure they don't miss my follow. But I've had to do that where I've had to unfollow an account, not because I had any problem with it, but because I was internalizing it too much, and I had to just go, okay, I just need to not even look at it.
And that's okay
frankly.
too.
Yeah, because
And
there's
that's an
no
act of
need to
self-love.
invite that
Like,
those feelings. I don't need to feel those feelings. Like,
Yeah.
it's totally not. It's not useful. It's not productive.
No, it's having a boundary
Doesn't earn
for
me
yourself.
money.
It's like
It doesn't
it's
improve my
yeah.
career
It's a total act
or
of
my
self-love.
happiness. Yeah, it doesn't bring me joy. If it doesn't bring me joy, it's got to go.
I agree. Okay, ladies, so we're going to wrap up a bit, and we've loved your honesty, your vulnerability, and just what you're all about. So
We're getting raw.
getting
raw.
raw.
We're
Speaking
raw.
of raw, can you redefine it, like really clearly define exactly what raw is, and how people can find you, if they're interested, for our ladies in the Seattle area, and if you're not, maybe you can come visit us.
Yes, yes.
So,
So you say what we are, and then I'll say how they can find us and like how we do our
Sounds
offerings.
great.
Okay.
Perfect.
So yeah, we have started currently with some wellness workshops. We in April will be launching our 28-day life detox ebook and doing detox workshops that are not just about food, but about your home, your personal life, all kinds of detoxing. And then we're moving into also hosting retreats. So like we were saying, we're all about bringing the healing and increasing the size of the community. We're going to be doing a really fun dance party coming up here in Seattle, where we're partnering with Trap Vinyasa. So literally it's like Vinyasa yoga mixed with African dance set to trap music, and it's amazing. So we'll be doing some like sensual body positive stretching, getting to know your skin, the skin you're in. And then we have our lovely friend Ashley, who is super awesome at pole fitness, going to teach us some twerking and other booty shaking, and then we'll get into some trap and do some free-for-all dance party action. But yeah, so it's just a really eclectic brew of what we're going to be offering. But yeah, we're just always going to keep coming back to the things that bring us joy and share them honestly and openly with other people.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so we have a website. It's www.rebelalignedwellness.com. Yeah, you can see Lindsey, myself, and Megan. We got to get Kenzie a shirt.
I know, y'all. I need to even go to some of
The
these
raw
events
And
too.
we need to get those shirts on the website.
Wait, can I come to this dance party soon?
Yes. We will let you know. We're looking at May 20th. We don't have a venue
Okay.
lined up, but it'll be 3 hours of awesomeness. So
Yes.
absolutely, please come. It's going to be so fun.
So that's our website. And so on our website, you can truly see our mission and what we're about. Lindsey was kind of giving you an overview on some of the upcoming offerings, but we are about standing in your truth, and not only standing in your truth, but unapologetically standing in your truth food is medicine. We said holistic health, but now we're moving towards that it's going to be accessible. Like
accessible, practical healing.
Yeah. So we have holistic health, but accessible and practical healing. Food is medicine, standing in your truth, yoga, and I think that's about it. And building community, of course. And we just want to let you know, there's always a community for you. And one of my biggest pet peeves is when people are like, I can't practice yoga. I'm not flexible, or I don't look like everyone else in the room, or I'm too fat. Like I've literally
Come to our workshops. You'll find out that's not true.
A guy be like, "Am I too fat to do yoga?" And I'm like, "What? Like all you need is your breath." Like it's crazy. Yeah. So like we, of course, will hold a safe space for everyone. But if you're not around us, and you can find a safe place. And with that being said, we're working on getting more stuff online. So people who are not in the Seattle area and not in the Puget Sound area, we're working on getting content online for you that you'll be able to access. So check us out on our website. And then also we are at Rebel Aligned Wellness. We have a Facebook business page. So we would appreciate it if you would go to our business page and like it, and also follow us on Instagram, also as Rebel Aligned Wellness. And thank you so much for having us on your show.
You guys are so beautiful. Thank you for coming.
We love you, and I'm so happy to finally get to meet Kenzie.
I know. I feel like Maggie and I are BFF. Now we need to follow each other, and we need to get to know each other, Lindsey, and form that bond too. Okay, well, Megan, any other thoughts?
I'm just so glad that you guys came on today.
Oh,
and
thank you so much.
I love that, we went through a lot together in teacher training and that we're continuing to have our friendship.
I know. Yeah. Isn't that funny when you get, I just have to say this, that when we started teacher training, if you had told me at that first roundup that we had where we all introduced ourselves that she and I would become best friends and like run a business together. I mean, I know we figured out pretty early that we have the same weird middle name. Yeah. And that was like an automatic.
What's your middle name? We have to know now.
It's Allen, spelled Allyn.
And I'm from Ohio, and she's from Washington, and we both have it.
So I've never met anybody else. But still, like if you had told me on day one that this would have been the person I would have linked up with, I probably would have been like, really? Like, I don't know. I probably would have picked one of the other tattooed chicks in the room, to be quite honest. But thankfully, we had 10 months to get to know each other on the real.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on.
Awesome.
We love you, viewers. Bye, guys.
Bye.